Welcome back to the MMA Oddsbreaker Fight Breakdown Show. This week, we're talking about UFC Fight Night 67. That's Nick Kalikas. I'm Frank Trigg. This is a big one. Alves versus Condit. This is kind of one that's been in the works for a long time. A lot of people have been looking towards this fight happening. But first, we have to talk about the co-main event. This is really the third inception of this fight, correct? With Nick Lentz and Charles Oliveira. They fought once, but they got overturned as a no contest due to an illegal knee by Oliveira. And now they try to fight again. Lentz got sick. Now here they are finally getting ready to compete here at UFC 67. I've got to think that Oliveira has got to be the huge favorite in this, just because the way he's been fighting lately. Of course, these guys are number 8 and number 9 at the weight class at 145, so this is a very, very tough fight. But as far as the ranking system goes, but I think this is kind of like, as far as the betting public goes, it's got to be a pretty easy pick going for Charles.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Actually, the odds indicate that as well. I opened it a little bit lower, but it did get bet up. Right now, Oliveira is actually minus 270. The comeback is plus 230 on Lentz. So betting sport coming in Oliveira's way. And a lot of it, I think, is based on their first fight. Like you said, it happened a long time ago at 155 at lightweight. So they're fighting now, obviously, at 145 at featherweight. So it's a different weight class, different situation. I think that both fighters have improved tremendous since then. But in the first fight, obviously, Oliveira was doing very well in all areas and all aspects of the game. So I think the public thinks overall it's going to happen again, and it was kind of an easy matchup for him. That's why they're coming in so strong.
You know, he said, Oliveira came out and said that, the commission, the Pennsylvania Commission made a mistake. They should have overturned the fight. The knee, yes, he was kneeing Nick. Nick was going down when he hit him. He was on his feet and was going down to the ground, and caught the first knee caught him when he was on his knees, and then he hits him with the second knee that he was up clearly on his feet, takes his back and chokes him out. Doesn't think that anything was going to change in the reality of that fight. Does it help or hurt a guy when the commission makes a decision like that and he comes out and says, "Look, the commission was wrong. They shouldn't have overturned the fight. It should still be a victory for me"? Does it do anything to the fighter later going on in these fights?
I mean, it should give Oliveira a little bit more confidence regardless, because he thinks that he, obviously manhandled Lentz there. But I think for Lentz, it's going to actually give him a little bit more motivation. So I don't think it's going to impact him too much what the commission says. I think it's just how the fight went. It's going to probably affect confidence levels. But one thing for sure is Lentz definitely knows that he's got to really be on his game for this fight, or he is going to likely get finished. I mean, Oliveira is such a great submission fighter. I mean, he's well-rounded overall, but what he excels at the most, and I mean, look, who submits Hayoki, for example? I mean, nobody's ever submitted Hayoki until Oliveira did. Yeah. So that tells you what kind of talent offensively that guy has on the ground. I mean, unbelievable. He could submit anybody in the division. It wouldn't surprise me if he does, catch anybody. So that's how good he is with the submission game. But I think a lot of people are underestimating Lentz. I mean, he's looked like a beast at 145. I think he's one of the best wrestlers in the weight class as well. Oliveira has been put on his back in fights. I mean, he's got good wrestling to go along with it, but he has been grinded out in the past. He's been controlled on the ground. He's very dangerous, though, off his back. I mean, he goes for arm bars, he goes for triangle chokes and reversals, so it's not going to be easy. But I think the path to victory for Lentz is honestly trying to push the pace a little bit, maybe pin Oliveira up against the cage. I mean, like I said, physically for 145, I think that's the best weight class for Lentz. So I think he's going to be a better fighter than he was at 155. I don't think Oliveira is going to be able to just dominate him as he did. I know that doesn't make much sense to a lot of people, but I think we're going to see a much closer fight here.
Well, if you go on at UFC.com, and they've done a great job of breaking down the differences between these fighters, and of course Nick is number 9 ranked, and Charles is ranked number 8. You look at the differences of like submission, percentage wins, obviously 30 for Nick, and then 58 for Oliveira. He's got a much better submission game. And then decisions, of course, Nick wins a ton of decisions at 41%, and then Oliveira only has 11%. But then you get down further into it, the significant strikes, landed accuracy, absorbed defense, you get into grappling situations, takedown average. The takedown average is Nick is 4 versus less than 2.5 for Oliveira. So we obviously know, okay, now we're looking at this from a betting standpoint, Nick's going to be on top. How good is Oliveira from his bottom? We all, like you just said, arm bars, triangles. He's very active. He has a very good open guard. He keeps the guy from getting back inside. But then you look at the submission average, 1.13 for Nick, 2.86 for Charles. Now, it doesn't sound like very much of a difference, but to me, that tells me that even when Nick takes Charles down, which I believe this is going to happen, Charles is still very dangerous from his back. The question is, can Nick ground and pound ground and pound Charles out for an early decision? Or do you think that Nick can win a decision? Let's just say that Nick ends up on top, he gets all the takedowns and keeps Charles down. Can Nick win a decision that way, or is he going to have to finish him by ground and pounding him when he's on top? Because I don't see him being able to submit him from the top, but I do being able to see him trying to ground and pound him.
Yeah, I think he can win decision, honestly. by kind of grinding him out as well, because I think it's going to be very hard for Lentz to finish Oliveira, to be honest with you. I mean, he's got a little bit of underrated power as well, so maybe some ground and pound, or maybe, he has that puncher's chance on the feet as well. But I think that's his clear path of victory, is trying to grind him out and win the decision on the cards. Because I do think if it hits the scorecards, we're going to see a really close decision, maybe a controversial decision. If the fight ends inside, it definitely favors Oliveira. Again, that's why everybody's been Oliveira, though, because he's such a good finisher. You just mentioned, I mean, how often he goes for submissions, and I mean, he's successful at doing so as well. So I think that's what it is. Inside, it's Oliveira decision. Honestly, it could go to Oliveira as well, but it's going to be close. So I think it's a dog or pass situation either way. I would not lay the juice, even though Oliveira looked that good in the first meeting, and a lot of people are expecting him to finish Lentz. I still wouldn't lay that kind of juice right now. I think it's a dog or pass situation, to be honest with you.
Well, dog and pass situation is my agreement as well. So that's the co-main event with Nick Lentz and Charles Oliveira. We both believe it's a dog or pass. This main event, though, is still very intriguing. Talking about Alves versus Condit, and let's not forget that this fight is down in Brazil on May 30th. This is a big date, it's a big time, and we didn't say earlier, but the entire card is for free, pseudo for free. Obviously, Fight Pass for the early prelims, and then everything else can be seen on Fox Sports, 8 p.m. East Coast for the preliminary card and 10 p.m. East Coast for the main card. So let's talk about Alves and Condit. This is a very interesting matchup between these two guys. Of course, it's a 5-rounder, which leans towards Condit. The reach goes towards Condit. Then it gets kind of even. You start looking at KO, TKO, it's 48% to 50%. 40 for Condit. Thiago has 50%. The sub ratio obviously jumps up for Condit, 45%. Thiago's more of a knockout guy. He's one of those weird Brazilians. It's more of a puncher than he actually is a submission guy that we're used to seeing as of frequently. Height, 74 inches versus 69 inches. And then, you have to worry about reach in this point. Carlos has a much longer reach in this one. How do you see this fight breaking down? And personally, I got to think that Carlos is the big favorite.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, line's similar to the last one, minus 270 right now, coincidentally, plus 230. So Condit is a decent sized favorite. Again, it's another spot that did get bet up, though. I opened Condit a little bit lower than that, and everybody just kind of automatically gives the fight to Condit. I don't know. I mean, look, he's coming in off of injury. I know it's been a while since he's competed, but we could say the same thing about Alves. I mean, it wasn't as long for Alves, but he's had his fair share of injuries lately too, and medical condition, a lot of things. So there's a lot of backstory for both fighters right now. I mean, from everything I'm hearing and all the information coming in, it looks like Condit is ready. He's in good shape. He's recovered well. So I'm expecting to see a pretty decent Condit. But, I mean, to lay a lot of juice on a guy like that right now in a competitive fight, because make no mistake, I think a lot of people are counting Alves out a little bit, because in his previous fight recently against Mian, Mian was tearing into him. Mian had him in a lot of trouble, and that's really not the usual for Alves, especially on the feet. In most cases, Alves is the one kind of picking people apart or landing that, giving the punishment, dishing out that kind of punishment. But he was taking it in the Mian fight. And Mian has a similar frame, obviously a little bit different than Carlos Condit, but he's long like Condit is as well. And Condit is a very effective striker. So I think people are expecting Condit to really have a big advantage, use his reach, and kind of pick Alves apart. But I think that's where the danger lies, honestly. I think Alves is getting a little bit underrated here as well. And not to mention, in the past, Condit's obviously, his main trouble has been against wrestlers, people that have been able to take him down, grind him out a little bit. That's how he loses fights. Hendricks did it to him, GSP did it to him. That's how he mainly loses these days. I think Alves actually can get a takedown or two along the way. His wrestling, usually he stuffs takedowns. His takedown defense is pretty good. But I think offensively, he might look for a takedown or two here as well. And I think he might be able to get it. So I think at the current price, again, it's another dog or pass situation, because on the feet, I expect it to be a little bit closer than most people anticipate. And then if Alves can get a takedown or two along the way, it might help him steal a round or two. Now, again, like you mentioned, I know it's a 5-round fight. Condit is a cardio machine, but Alves has been 5 rounds before as well. And, typically he can go 3 strong. he might slow down a little bit, but overall, I don't think 5 rounds is going to be a problem for either guy, to be honest with you.
You're looking at the takedown defend accuracy. We're talking about 39%, 39 and 0.78% for Carlos. If someone tries to take him down, he stops him. 66% for Alves. That's the defense on takedown. So it's going to be hard to take him down to the ground, and his averages are getting better on the takedown offense. So I do think that you're probably going to see him shoot a little bit more. And I agree with you, Nick. I think this is very even on the feet. I think it's going to be very, very close, but then we're going to have to start to sit down and talk about at what point do you have to have that kind of gut, that kind of gumption to be able to go, okay, look, I got to win this round. I've been losing the last couple. I got to pull the next 3 out of my hat. What do I do? I think when it comes down to toughness within the fight, I think that Carlos has got a little bit more toughness. He's a guy that's a little bit deeper, goes in deeper waters a little bit more, understands the game a little bit better, and is not scared to try to mix it up because he knows that he's got a tough chin. Do you think that Alves can knock out Carlos Condit, even though that Carlos has that tough chin and it's very difficult to put him down?
Well, he has been rocked before, though, too. And Alves has that killer instinct. So if he rocks him, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he finishes because Alves has that special knockout power and that special finishing ability as well. So, again, it's another situation that, it wouldn't surprise me who he finished, honestly, in the welterweight division. Now, I think it is going to be hard for him to stop Condit, though. I think if it ends inside, Condit might catch a sub. I mean, if you look back at the, not too long ago, Alves was actually dominating Martin Kampmann. And Kampmann ended up coming back late in that fight and just catching a guillotine choke after he was losing big time on the scorecards and finishing him. So Alves does have those moments in fights where he tends to make a mistake and sometimes he gets himself in trouble and subbed. So I think if there is going to be a finish, it probably favors again Condit because Condit is, like you said, super tough. Even when he does get rocked, more times than not, obviously he ends up surviving and doing okay and rebounding and fighting well after the fact. So I think it's going to be hard for either one of these guys to honestly finish each other. I'm expecting it. I know 5 rounds is a long time to go, especially with the potential that both of these guys have at finishing, but I think it probably does hit the scorecards. If not, I think if it does end inside, it's another situation, maybe favors Condit a little bit. But I do think that Alves is going to be close, man. I mean, and it's hard to, again, lay that kind of juice against him. A lot of people were going crazy with Mian, and they got burnt. I mean, he was looking good, like I said, against him, and Alves showed that he still has something left, and that body kick was vicious. Yeah. I mean, the guy has power in his hands and his feet, finishing power, so you got to respect that for sure, and it's hard to lay juice against somebody like that.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's another dog or pass. The co-main event and the main event kind of match it the same. It's a dog or pass for this one. Same thing for you in the main event?
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is, as far as pure pick goes, you got to kind of lean with the favorites. They're favored for a reason, I mean, I would lean more towards Condit winning the fight, of course, over Alves, and I would lean Oliveira winning the fight over Lentz. Yeah. But I mean, as far as betting goes, picking and betting are two different animals completely, and the value is on both underdogs. Even though I'm expecting the favorites to win, if that makes sense.
Put them in a parlay.
No, I wouldn't touch. I mean, if you're going to take a small stab either way, just bet them both straight. Just a small stab at the dog if you're going to do that. Or, like I said, just pass and move on because there's obviously a lot of other fights on this card, and it seems like every weekend there's a UFC for a while now too. So, you don't have to always force the issue and make a play when it's not there. But I do think there might be a little bit of value on both underdogs because the lines have creeped up enough where I think both underdogs are getting a little bit disrespected here in this spot.
That's Nick Kalikas. I'm Frank Trigg. This is the MMA Oddsbreaker Fight Breakdown Show. We'll see you again next week when we discuss the next card.
Cool. I think we're right?
Yep, we're good.